Welcome to Eat the Bible, the world's fastest chapter-by-chapter Bible study, powered by Revelation 10:10.
Okay, let's get started. Welcome to episode number 5, Deuteronomy, the fifth and final book of what's called the Torah, meaning instruction. Now, we've mentioned some of the 613 laws or commandments which the Jews, bless their hearts, tried to keep. Ultimately unsuccessful, I might add. We can thank Jesus for imposing only one law, the law of love, meaning we love God, we receive the Holy Spirit as a download, and then we have the power to love others. There's no other way. If you haven't seen the 7-minute introduction, click the link up here. Please watch it because otherwise a lot of what follows won't make sense. Meanwhile, the 60-second recap. 4 threads. The first thread that weaves its way through the Bible is blood sacrifice. 2,000 years ago, it suddenly shifted from many animals to one human being. The second thread, Satan, the second smartest entity in the universe, always hovering, extremely dangerous. That's because he can play with our mind. The third thread, the script, it dictates a movie called This Is My Life. The final thread, self, yourself, and how to change it. Regarding the 12 situations that we often find ourselves in that attract Satan, anger is the most common, but ignorance is perhaps the most dangerous. I mean, if you don't even know who Satan is, he's probably already recruited you. That's how powerful he is. And finally, portals. We've heard that term when talking about doorways into other dimensions. There's a portal into our brain, and Satan wants in. The longer we let our situation simmer, the greater the likelihood of Satan entering and planting destructive thoughts in our mind. Okay, what time is it? It's time to
Eat Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy is essentially 3 sermons given by Moses summarizing what we've already learned. I'm only going to mention the new stuff. Moses blames the people for requesting spies be sent into the promised land of Canaan. Now, jumping back to the story we already studied in Numbers 13, the pieces of the puzzle start falling into place. You see, Moses knew the spies' idea was bad from the get-go, but God gave him the go-ahead anyway, setting them up for big-time failure, just like the script said it would be. Had their faith been strong, Moses would have done a quick 3-day in and out, but their faith was weak. Satan saw an opportunity, and he slipped through the portal called lack of faith. Too many questions had been posed, requiring way too much time to search out, including a ridiculous one regarding grapes. Each day they lingered, it cost them a year wandering in the desert. 40 days lingering, 40 years wandering. Nephilim, hybrid creations of Satan, are so dangerous. Wherever they are found, they are marked for destruction. Among the contaminated Amorite tribes lurking in the Promised Land are they Rephaim, Zamzummim, Anakim, Emim, and Zuzim. Their names reveal their manipulated DNA character. Rephaim means the weakened ones. Zamzummim means the noisy ones. Anakim means long-necked terrors or the Satan kings. Emim means terrors. Zuzim means troublemakers. The battle with King Sihon, an Amorite, is recounted. Of course, God knows the outcome before it happens because he has the script. Verse 30 says, God hardened Sihon's spirit and made his heart obstinate, that he, God, might give him into your hand. The dynamic is summarized in verse 33. Our God gave him over to us, and we defeated him. Because of their demonic DNA, everyone in Sihon's kingdom is devoted to destruction. Another Nephilim giant is the Amorite king Og. His iron bed is over 13 feet long. He's also devoted to destruction. God warns Israel to avoid idols. Since they heard his voice on Mount Sinai, but saw no comprehensible form, they are prohibited from creating images from their imagination. The 10 Commandments are reviewed again. The greatest commandment is given. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Commandments are to be taught to children and discussed constantly. The Jewish mind is to constantly remember and meditate on just how God sets them free from bondage. 7 nations, including the Amorites already occupying Canaan, are listed for total destruction. God calls Israel his treasured possession, set apart from all other nations. God will send hornets ahead to defeat the enemy. But the conquest must be done slowly, step by step. God has access, total access, to the human mind, causing confusion amongst his enemies prior to their defeat. God tests people so they can know what's under the surface and hidden in their heart. Man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the Bible. Prosperity has a way of pushing God out. It causes pride, one of Satan's easiest ways to pass through our brain portal. There are giants in the land, such as the sons of Anak, but God goes ahead of Israel as a fire, destroying and subduing. Israel's role is to make them perish quickly. It's not because Israel is so righteous that God does what he does. It's because the nations are so wicked and he's fulfilling his promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God asks Israel to circumcise the foreskin of their heart. He goes on to say, stop being so stubborn, so hard-headed. He's asking them to undertake a surgical procedure that's truly impossible until the cross arrives some 1,500 years later. That's when God, through Jesus, takes a person's old heart and gives him a new one. God is the best heart surgeon in the universe. And finally, God expresses special concern for the fatherless, the widows, and the sojourner. If Israel serves God with all of their heart and all of their soul, all of their mind, and all of their strength, the rains will arrive at their proper times. Their territory is to extend from the Euphrates River to the Mediterranean Sea. There is to be a dramatic exchange between people standing on two opposing mountains, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. Blessings are announced from one peak and curses from the other. The big plan is to cross over the Jordan River and claim the land. Israel is told to destroy the places where their enemies worship, including on the high mountains, on the hills, and under every green tree. Altars, pillars, asherim, and carved images of their gods. It's all got to go. In stark contrast, Israel is to meet God in one place. They're not to do whatever is right in their eyes, and they're not to neglect the Levites who own nothing. Anyone who goes after other gods is to be put to death. Previous rules are reviewed again. God says there will be no poverty in Israel if they obey him. They are to give freely to neighbors who are struggling. The spring, summer, and fall feasts are reviewed once again. The conditions under which someone is stoned to death are given, specifically when they serve other gods here on earth, or the sun, or the moon, or the hosts of heaven. Even though God is their king right now, he foretells a time when they will request an earthly king. Their kings are not to buy many horses from Egypt, they're not to get many wives, and they're not to acquire much gold and silver. But we will see in the book of 1 Kings that King Solomon, the world's wisest man, violated all three rules. Kings are also to write out their own copy of the Torah and to read it daily. These are abominations to God: burning children as an offering, using mediums, or obtaining divinations. Another prophet is coming whose every word will be true. And as we'll see in the book of Matthew, that is Jesus. Respect ancient boundaries. To be accused of a crime requires 2 to 3 witnesses. Before the army enters battle, the priest speaks to them. Then officers give the nervous soldier an opportunity to go back home. Marriage rules are established regarding women captured from the enemy, as well as men who have 2 wives, one loved and one not loved. Rebellious sons who are drunkards and gluttons are to be stoned to death. Women are not to wear men's clothing. Men are not to wear women's clothing. When a man has sex with an unattached woman and they are discovered, he must marry her for life. Ammonites and Moabites are permanently excluded from fellowship with the Jews. That's because they refused to help the Jews during their wilderness wandering. Human waste is to be disposed of properly. That's because God is walking in their midst. Because they have hard hearts, laws are given regarding men divorcing their wives. Punishment by beating is never to exceed 40 lashes, so as to protect the person's dignity. Levirate marriage rules say that a dead man's brother is supposed to marry the widow to carry on the name. But if he refuses, she's to pull off his sandal and spit in his face. Israel is told to blot out the memory of Amalek, the king they first battled way back in Exodus 17. And incidentally, this battle continues today in Israel. When offering first fruits and tithes, they are to recite a pledge declaring the true intent of their heart. The two-mountain blessing and curses event is reviewed again. Obedience results in blessings. Disobedience results in madness, blindness, and a confused mind. A prophecy is given which states that disobedient Israel will be so desperate at one point they will eat their own children. Sadly, we will read about its fulfillment 700 years later in the book of 2 Kings. God keeps some things secret, but what he does reveal is ours to keep forever. Only God can circumcise our heart, enabling us to love him fully with our heart and soul. When the choice is between life and death, good and evil, blessings or curses, Moses urges Israel to choose life. Moses commissions Joshua to take over as leader. The Torah is to be read publicly every 7 years. God prophesies that Israel will break the covenant. Moses writes a song to serve as a witness against Israel. The song speaks of God creating the various nations of the world, each with their own languages, beginning at the Tower of Babel. Then he assigns evil territorial spirits over each nation, but God reserves Israel for himself. This principle of evil territorial spirits influencing national affairs still holds true today. It certainly explains why America has become the #1 exporter of pornography, abortion technology, military hardware, and bioweapons, just to name a few. We are the Babylon of Revelation 18. Moses delivers a final prophecy to each of the 12 tribes. Moses ascends Mount Nebo. God shows him the promised land. Then he dies and God buries him. He is 120 and full of strength to the very end.